Hey, we're back again with Tony and with Josh, and today we're talking about everyone's favorite topic. What the fuck is an early access versus beta test? Is there really a difference, or are you paying extra money just to beta test someone else's stuff? Tony, Josh, I don't have much of a build up for this one because my general take is that early access is an excuse for us to beta test somebody else's problems. I think there was one game, I don't remember what it was. It was Skyrim or something like that. That came out with early access,
No Man's
and
Sky. Right?
no. Skyrim. Is it Skyrim? It was one of those games where your progress would be deleted every time they updated the game as the actual launch date comes forward. So anything that you had in progress for your early access was gone by the time the game actually officially launched. So it was a part of this idea that everyone should start on a level playing ground. But then what was the point of having early access at all then?
Hmm.
Yeah,
True. True.
there's a lot of reasons to it actually. It can be technical reasons, it could be funding reasons.
Mm.
So, for example, like Hades, they actually did early access for like 2 years before the actual full release of their game.
Ah,
Hmm.
seriously?
Yeah. So
But Hades is such a
the
simple
way they did
game.
it is quite inspirational because they are indie studio as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so they actually after they launched their early access, they actually continuously have this active community on Discord and Reddit to gather feedback. Even I think even to the extent of like naming certain enemies and stuff like that. And they actually really listen to those feedback and actually like develop following those feedback that they get from their community. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
one way of doing it. Also, some maybe they need funding. I don't think so because they had like a few quite successful titles already by then. But some companies actually do launch early access to get a bit of funding or to gauge whether to prove the concept to their investors, so
Hmm.
that they can get funding from the investors also. So yeah, there's
Hmm.
a lot of different reasons
Yeah.
why you have this beta, why you have this early access and stuff like that.
That's the thing that like
No, I guess it's like, I mean, if the intentions are multiple and it comes from a good place, right? Then I think none of us really have that much to complain about, because I mean, in this day and age, we are so like digitally seamless, right?
mm,
So it makes sense that, yeah, maybe sometimes your Q&A team, your testers, maybe can't give you the feedback that your consumer can, especially diehards or somebody who's played like a previous title can, right, through a beta, or even as like what Tony was saying, maybe for a new title, it's a POC, it's a proof of concept to investors that, hey, you got to pump in more money, and this is the usership, the engagement numbers through uh, through limited time, or even I think recently, like Monster Hunter Wilds did it just to test the servers, even though it's a version of the game I think that was done at Gamescom Germany, but that was an old build, right? But it doesn't matter. It was to allow fans to try out the game, even though it's an old. You might not be playing the latest release, but it's to test the servers, right? To see how the global load would be. So I guess it's fine, but I think when we as consumers start to question is that if there are, I mean, it's fine if you have certain contents just for people who gain the early access, but when there are charges involved, I think this is where I
it
think
gets murky.
recently what Path of Exile had an early access, right? If I'm not mistaken. I mean, I don't play Path of Exile, but
But I mean, half of the Steam libraries are early access right now. All the new games, some of the old games, still early access. Dota 2
mm,
at
Yeah,
one point was
I
still
think
beta, right?
generally most of them are probably by indie studios lah. So because there are demos, or demos are completely free. So if you're paying anything, then it's most likely it's like early access already lah. And I think I think Beta 4, I'm not sure if that's considered early access or just a
A
demo.
demo.
It's free. It's free, but then you can your saves are actually like carry forward. You know,
Yeah.
you can actually continue playing once you buy the full game as well. So nothing changes. Whereas back in the old days, the demos are like different from the actual full release version of the game. Like Resident Evil, they used to have a lot of like tie-in with other games, right? Especially the PlayStation 1 era. When you buy like certain Capcom games, or even like let's say if you buy like Resident Evil something director's cut, then they give you a demo disc of Resident Evil 2.
Yep.
And then in that demo you probably play up to the first boss, and you probably don't even get to fight the first boss, and they just fade to black, and then that's it.
Oh,
shit! I
yeah,
just
okay.
remembered.
I mean, it's a bit like
You guys
shareware and all
remember-
that lah. Back
What
in
do you
the
guys
day.
remember? Like magazines like Electronic Gaming Monthly,
Yep.
where they used to release like demos off and on.
Oh yeah.
Remember that?
Well, those were the days, man.
I mean, PlayStation used to come with those. PlayStation and Sega, when they did their
Yeah,
magazines,
yeah.
used to get
Yeah,
like demo
I think it was
discs.
a Sega
for games.
Dreamcast magazine as well. Yeah.
I still have like 1 or 2 demo discs.
Yeah, I mean, I think what like Tony was saying, in terms of those demos, it makes sense when it comes to even big studios working on a new title. Like recently, like he mentioned, Metaphor, right? It's a new IP. Yes, it's using some inspiration from Persona, but you don't know whether your captive audience will be there, right? So it's about getting the game out there, some traction, at least through a free demo, so that people can just try it. I mean, it's added advantage they can transfer their save file to the real game. But yeah, it's about, I think, even though it's a second name title and so on, but if they feel that there's not enough traction going around it, then they might release a demo.
Because I remember when Street Fighter V launched, and then there was a 1 month early beta test, and then there was a 3-day early access. And the 1 month early beta build was like, it was trash. But you have to pay to get on the beta testers list, which I was like, this is just another way of hiding the term early access with purchase of this video game. You know what I mean? And by and large, the game was, for all intents and purposes, half-baked.
Yeah, even upon launch.
Yeah, no arcade mode, just training mode online, and the online's not rollback netcode. So that's all you had, right? Like online play against the computer until level 8 in training mode, and that's pretty much it. Just like regular lobbies and all that kind of stuff. To me, that's not the most egregious, right? I'm sure there are other examples of worser type. I mean, there are more worse examples of people using early access as an excuse to release sort of a half-baked game. Like something that they weren't ready to meet the timelines on. So, I mean, one of the time, I can't remember, was it Metal Gear Solid 4 or something like that? Not 4. It was one of the Metal Gear Solids that came out, and basically the game was over in 2.5 hours. But,
Was it?
It was a complete game, but do you not think that was probably instigated a little bit by the fact that, like, we went way over budget, now we got to release what we have, but all we have is like a 2.5 hour game. I might not just let it ride, you know what I mean? Roll the dice and see where we're at. Forget the early access. We give people exactly what they paid for. Is that still a practice?
I think so. I mean, like, I think that is still slightly better than releasing what you call a full release, and yet the game is not complete, right?
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, I think most early access it comes with incentives. So if you buy the game early, it's cheaper. Then you get all these like in-game items, exclusive in-game items, and stuff like that. So it is still fair, I would say, most of them. But what I cannot accept is that you release a game that is incomplete and you still try to promote it as such.
Yeah, I think that's egregious, right? So Street Fighter 5 was one of those. I think in recent, maybe
Yeah.
not that recent, but like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was another one where it was released not long after another previous title, which was Arceus, I think within the same calendar year, where it was so obvious it was rushed for Christmas, right? But what came out was a
Hot trash.
nightmare of a game. It was trash,
Yeah.
like so many people were so disappointed with it. Like the frame rates dropped, the pieces were missing, and like wow, it was crazy. And I think they didn't acknowledge, or that they didn't.
Oh
Maybe they
yeah,
did
they, they,
acknowledge it,
they
but
don't.
Yeah.
yeah,
Nintendo won't ever
yeah,
make
not
it.
for
Yeah.
the longest
They
time,
never
and
make a
they didn't
mistake.
fix anything.
Yeah.
I think till today, I don't think they've done some of the major fixes. So I think that's where you go into grounds where people start questioning: Are you taking advantage of the fan base just because your IP is known for like 30 years? You know,
Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, and that game had a demo too, by the way, right? So people were like very forgiving. They were like, "Oh, it's okay. Some of these fixes, this demo was probably done like 6 months ago. This is the demo version, so we're cool with it. Don't worry, it will come out great." And then when it actually came out, it was so many bugs present in the game, and people like, what the fuck? How can they actually do this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I want to bring up FF15 again?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
heard about that
Yeah.
ignominious launch and all that. Look.
Yeah, I mean, that one I don't know what's going on in the back. I'm pretty sure it's not the development team is probably not responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
That is probably because the executives or the CEO were like, okay, this game has been in a 10-year development hell, and we are just wasting too much time and money on this. Let's just release it. Do the best you can and just release it. That's what I think happened, because I mean, if you played the game and you finished it, you can tell the first version of that game is is a mess. I mean, like it felt like it had a act one, it had an act three, but it didn't have an act two kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
and it felt like there's a lot of cut contents. And then after that, they at first I think they did not want to admit it, judging by all the interviews and all that. I think even the director Tabata was probably forced to say things that he probably did not agree with lah. I mean, I think kesian him also lah. Um, I think that time they were like, oh, okay, so we heard your feedback and all that, so we are releasing DLCs which you can pay for to
Fix
get
the
all these
game.
missing contents. So so basically, as the fans, I mean the players are paid for the full game, and yet on top of that, you need to pay for multiple
Mm.
DLCs
So it's like
to
one
kind
bad
of
move after
get
the
the
next.
missing contents.
Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of things didn't make sense to me that time. I mean, like those interviews, those answers to criticisms,
Yeah.
or at least they tried to lah. Yeah.
I think it goes back. Actually, no, it doesn't go back. I wanted to bring up something. We talked about it the other day, right? Where, uh, in a different podcast, where the game isn't on the physical media anymore. Maybe 20-30% is shipped on the actual physical media. If you want to buy the game on Blu-ray for your Xbox or for your PlayStation or whatever,
Mm.
the rest of the game is downloaded separately. So they can shorten the distance between printing production time
Mm.
and also development time. You know what I mean? They can concurrently run it. So they start the printing and production at when they completed the game at 25% in terms of files, and then the remaining 75% has another 6 months before delivery to be able to be crafted and developed and all that kind of stuff. I wonder, is like, again, it's kind of a predatory practice, and I wouldn't say predatory and strictly true, but it's more like, oh, we live in a digital age, and therefore things should be readily available for download all the time.
Mm.
I could just fix the game the moment I release it. Do you guys feel like too often this is kind of the excuse we're being given all the time? And of course, all these minions out there who are running positive social media campaigns. Like everybody's on the Star Wars. What's that recent one that they had where the girl can headbutt a lightsaber?
Outlaw, is it?
No, not the game. The Disney Plus show.
Oh, that one.
Oh,
Like
damn it.
this.
Start with A, right?
It's not Ashoka, right? It's a different thing.
No. The
Anyways,
guy
I
with
don't
the
know.
guy from the Squid Games.
The one that screwed up the Sith side, whatever, like
yeah, exactly. So
twin sister
what
bullshit
doesn't make
thing.
sense is like you rely so heavily on positive media outlook for you to drive the narrative about your game being success so that people will buy it. But when people buy it and they complain about it, you shut them up and say, hey, you know what? It's the fans' problem. You're the reason why I failed. You're the reason why my game sucks. And it's not true.
Hmm.
Like if you took a page out of the guy who did Lawbreakers, he launched his game when Overwatch was coming out. And the gameplay is largely the same.
Yeah.
It's a team-based like zero grab shooter and all that kind of stuff. And Battleborn died, Lawbreakers died, all these games died to Overwatch, which for all intents and purposes is one of those early access you paid for the game, but it has assets from a different game that it was supposed to be, got never finished, and they just turned it into a battle arena shooter.
Hmm.
And people still flocked to it, gave it millions of dollars to play the game. What are your thoughts on that? Because I feel like there's a little bit of, I don't want to say malpractice is the right term, right? But like they're kind of taking your money for a ride, right?
I mean, I think so, right? Because on the one hand, obviously, it's the digitally seamless age, right? Where, okay, it's fine because if you get to cut down in terms of production demands and so on, then why not? I mean, as long as the overall quality of the output in the end, what you get is a certain caliber, then none of us have nothing to complain, right? So, but I think the main thing here is because we also live in an age of is is the demand age, right? Where you have shareholders and you have uh, people who have stake in the company wanting the best or the most profits that they can get. So that then cuts down time in terms of development. It balloons up in terms of, or it scales down in terms of your budgets. And so I think the PR machine is one, but that's more like to manage the dumpster fire, right? But the fire has already been stoked even since earlier, no?
Yeah.
So I mean, and the best when it comes to this is when it comes to Ubisoft, right? Because they are renowned for this kind of releasing half-baked for many years, no? Especially when I don't know how badly they've actually screwed up the whole Assassin's Creed franchise. It's just now known for half-baked stuff. So yeah, so I mean, it's that, but it's also we are just rushing for profits, and I think a lot of things is being sacrificed, and people can see through it, especially now.
Can they
Yeah.
though? I feel like
Yeah.
people are still keeping Ubisoft afloat, right? People are still waiting for these titles that they want to see come out, and they're still paying an arm and a leg for things that early access with the promise of like loot boxes and epic items and all that, which you can't resell.
Yeah. They think they can do it because they have a highly successful franchise IP, right? But I believe that eventually you can't do that forever.
Yeah,
Ubisoft is, well, I don't know what's gonna happen to them, but I think they do have to, you know, clean themselves up and start doing things properly. Because back then they were so good, right?
Yeah, they were.
Assassin's Creed back then, almost even after the original trilogy, the spin-offs or the installments after that, they were still good. I mean, probably they lost the continuation of the actual arc of the story and all that, but still, they are still great games. Especially the visuals and all that is still very immersive. But then yeah, so that I'm pretty sure there's also a lot of games where they go, a lot of studios, they use Kickstarter, not just like
yeah.
early access and
Yeah.
all this, and they just take all the money and then they thought they can finish it, or maybe they truly genuinely intended to finish it, but shit happens and
Like
they
Mighty
failed to.
Number Nine.
There are quite a number.
Yeah.
There's probably even some in Malaysia, but I'd rather not
Mm.
get into that. Um, so yeah, and then they can't just come out and say that
Yeah.
we're gonna stop production, we're gonna stop development. They can't do that because if they do that, then means they're admitting that it's almost like a fraud, right? And there might be legal issues and all that. They have to repay all the people that funded you,
The
and
investors.
it becomes a whole issue. Yeah, the investors, Kickstarter, and all that.
Who do you
Yeah.
think it falls down on to generate like? Okay, so I always I hated this when I read it, but quite a number of years ago, I want to say almost 10 years ago, like everyone agrees that DC has been shit in terms of coming out with movies. Right, their
Mm.
TV series is crap unless you like Smallville. Okay, like uh,
No one's
Gotham
judging.
kind of okay. I think everybody was kind of half and half on that. Other things like the animated series or the animated movies is really good, but they just keep pumping out the crappiest dumpster fires like Aquaman 2, uh, Justice League, Dawn of Justice. I mean, like their intent was to do something good, and the individual performances, some of them are not bad in the films, but as a
Mhm.
whole, the narrative structure and the how to weave a proper story has been missing from a lot of these things. But they don't care. They don't bother with reshoots. They just put it out anyways. Because as one exec said, it's like, look, kids are still gonna watch it. They're still
Mm.
gonna give us their money. And we don't care. If you give us the money, you're enabling this kind of behavior. You know what I mean? And it's this kind of quote unquote like, oh, if you join a Kickstarter, you gave them the money and they go, well, we have to finish the game, so we finish the game. Here you go. By the way, here's the tack on 15 USD to fix the game. Because you can't finish it
Mm.
if you don't pay the money. You know what I mean? Like it's it doesn't make sense anymore. Like the in a film, it's easier to fix. The reason why I say it's easier to fix is because you could just get a better storyteller, you get a better script, you get a better director, right? And then you get something like, oh, Christopher Nolan's Batman or the Coen Brothers Avengers and all that, right? Not Coen Brothers. I mean the whatever brothers. I can't remember their names.
Russo.
The Russo brothers. Yeah, correct. So then you also get these situations where in gaming there's nobody who's doing this QA. There are like very few class action lawsuits get taken against gaming companies that I remember for falsely advertising a product and not delivering. And a lot of them make very small reparations. Like No Man's Sky has been a fixer upper since the day it launched
Mm.
until almost I don't know how many years, like 5 years, 6 years later, it's finally a great stable game.
Mm.
So I mean, there's gotta be somebody's gotta be sitting there and going, hey, we can't just treat this like a film and just keep putting out nonsense and fix it and treat everything as a service. Right? There's got to be a level of polish right to it. Or do you guys think that like, development companies just like, whatever, fuck it. Just do whatever we want.
No, I think you're right. I mean, there should always be a level of polish, right? And that was a great example in terms of using DC, right?
Yeah.
Where you have a known IP, you have reference sources from the comics, right? And whichever writer, whichever arc you want to pick, right? Of whichever hero or character that you want to, whichever IP you want to focus on. But ultimately, like you also insinuated, right? If your execs or your leadership actually treats your consumer like a balance sheet in out, right? So I buy this, this is the expectation. I don't care as long as it hits the expectation and more, then you stand to lose a lot in the long run. I mean, it's something that three of us are very accustomed to, right? When it comes to building brand equity, right? So, but this is like, and this is the inverse where there's decades of brand equity already built, but they have, and I don't believe that they're stupid as individuals, right? But they have actually, because they treat their customers like a balance sheet, they have made calculated risk in terms of how much they're willing to lose in terms of goodwill, fanfare, and everything in order to have those, I would say, temporary gains, right? So, and these guys are not stupid, right? These suits and so on. So it's something that is, I think it's sad, really, because even now you have people like Disney coming out and saying, "Oh, we have this Star Wars title," but people are just saying like, just shut up about all the different titles. Just actually make a good series, right? If you want to make series, So it's How long more can this go on? I don't know, but sooner or later, you just have Dune coming up, right? So
Which one? The game?
no, not the game. I think not sure much
The
about the game, but
series.
you see how the movie series has been, the trilogy,
Yeah.
how it's been done, and that's like proper.
Oh yeah, but
Yeah,
have you seen Dune Prophecy?
no,
Not
So
no,
yet.
it's like
that's
a
the
ten
series, right?
thousand year prequel,
Yeah, yeah.
and I swear to God, it's a fucking dumpster fire. It
Oh,
sucks
really?
so much ass. It's not even funny. I watched it. It's
Oh,
visual
I thought it would
direction.
be good.
No, the visual direction's bad. I am pretty sure they got some of the factoids wrong
Hmm.
about the show at that about the universe at that period of time, because I read the books. I read what happens after the Machine War. I read what happens during the Machine War, and the Butlerian Jihad is what they call it, and it's just one of those things where like they had an action sequence where this girl's training to fight, and I was like, who the hell did they get to direct this piece of shit? Like, the choreography was bad. Like, couldn't they get anybody from Denis Villeneuve's team to come and do the lighting, the choreography for fighting, to do the set design and all that? It's like, here we go. They're just wasting. People want more Dune content. Okay, we'll just get somebody who's a lesser known storyteller and a lesser known director to do this, and then they go and do it, and they go, you know what? If you hadn't read the books, you would think this is halfway decent. Then you read the books and you go, well, nobody's got time to read the books, right? So this is what we got, and I think because I watch videos and I'm young and I don't know how to read anymore, this must be the best thing ever. It's just bad. Just
Oh,
horrendously bad.
oh, that's disappointing.
It's
I
very
was looking
disappointing.
forward to watching to that. I
Well,
was
I mean, I think
looking
the
forward to
first two
watch that.
episodes are out already, so you can definitely watch if you want, but I just like, I don't understand. For me, it's just like, why as a story narrative does Frank Herbert's son not want to control it? Control it more. There are like houses in there that I go like, I don't remember ever hearing about them before. Why are they here? You know what I mean? Like, why do we have to keep changing the source material? Can you just give us what you want?
Yeah, because I did read a bit about it. I mean, I did read the books, but I did try to find out whether it's gonna, they're gonna take it off, from the actual or source material, right? And I kind of already knew that it wasn't, but I still was like looking forward to it because the movies were great. So I thought they probably could have done a good job because it's in the same universe, not
Yeah.
like a separate thing and all that. And Bena Gesserit writes about. So I thought it's gonna be like very very interesting to know, the how it all came to be.
He wouldn't even give you that much, bro. So, like, I'll spoil a little bit of it, but like,
All
basically,
right,
you
all right.
jump in and they don't tell you how the Bene Gesserit start. You jump in and the Bene Gesserit already exist,
Ah, damn. Okay.
and like you're like, wait,
That's
they're becoming they're arriving at the evolution of where they should be, but they don't tell you the genesis of it, right? They just give you a paragraph, a copy at the beginning, some narration, and then you go, oh, okay. It's like one of the key things. I know we're completely off topic, but like the Butlerian Jihad in that novelization of the story, right, is when AI takes over and AI machines, thinking machines, then enslave humanity or any species they come across. So to defeat them, they had like their own generals and all that. Like some humans discovered spice, and when they discovered too much spice, they discovered that they can actually see time and space as it is in the present and in the future. So as a result, they can then fold space and know where they're going to get to, because that's something that only like AI computers could do at the time. So the humans were heavily reliant on them. That's why they were enslaved. So all of these things actually lead up to the actual creation of the Bene Gesserit, who use the spice as a prescience, right? So that they can see the future, so to speak. And I feel like they kind of fucked that up in the first
Oh
episode of
man.
Doom Prophecy, and I was like, what is this?
Damn. That sucks. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll save my time.
I mean,
Skip
I probably might give it a second episode watch to see if they can rescue it, but by and large, I think the only thing that's ever taken my eye, like in terms of expansion of universe, was that I thought was really really great in the last like maybe 5 years. Have you guys watched Andor?
Oh, I heard it was good.
No. I heard it was good also, so
It
I haven't.
is. It's like watching a sci-fi spy movie, and then you forget it's Star Wars.
That's cool.
It's
That's good.
you forget it's freaking Star Wars, and it was like, what? Best effort from Disney since Rogue One. You know what I mean? And like everything else has just been like really hardcore questionable. You know what I mean?
And Rogue One was amazing too.
Yeah, Rogue One is hands down my favorite Star Wars movie now.
Oh really?
Yeah, it
Wow.
beats every single mainline film for me because my favorite part about the movie is that everyone dies. Everyone's dead. You don't need to tell any stories about what happens after them. You only need to tell the stories of what happens before them, right? If you really wanted to go
Yeah.
down that path.
Oh, but that's cool, right? Because the lead up to that was New Hope, basically, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, so it's so well done.
Yeah.
But I think going back to like what you were mentioning earlier, right? It's these series like Dune Prophecy, its own, where you tell your consumer base that you are going to make like, hey, find out about the backstory to this, and so on. But do you think they knowingly go out with something that, again, this goes back to our topic, right? People already can see that it's half baked. So what's wrong here? Is it the narrative? Is it production? What is the reason that you knowingly released something like this? I mean, it can't be, right? It can't be that people were so ignorant and daft to not see this, right?
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, try to circle it back to video games later, but yeah, I think there's a lot of factors that we probably don't know about. Like maybe they're like, oh, let's do this prequel that happened like years ago, so that we can still like come up with contents for our streaming service,
Yeah.
and yet not affect the actual films, the main franchise, right? So we can like, okay, we can just chin chai, just do some half-ass shit, just just for the streaming service.
Yeah.
And
And,
they don't have to care about rating or
Yeah.
anything.
I think that's exactly the problem, right? Where they're going, you know what? The iron is hot. We should strike now. Everybody's like is missing Dune content, and the only time they're gonna get more Dune content is when Denis Villeneuve figures out what's the next script of Dune,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
he says he's gonna go to the second novel. I think Dune Messiah. I can't remember what it was, but it's like the wait is going to be too long. People don't have the attention span of 4 years.
Yeah, but that's like what Tony was mentioning, right? That's
Yeah.
the exact thing that that they are going after, right? Which is people love the IP, people love the franchise, and possibly because of some deals that you struck up with a streaming service, and we become like a numbers game.
Yeah.
It's the point to me is subscriber numbers. We don't care about the ratings. We don't care about the fans. It's getting the subscribers because who was it? HBO? all right?
Yeah, HBO.
Yeah.
Yes, Max.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, it's on
because
Max.
because HBO Max gave us this money, they bought the some parts of the IP, so we have to cobble something together to maybe help them meet their subscriber numbers because Netflix and Disney Plus also putting pressure as competitors and blah.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of mirrors between a streaming platform and their IPs and console gaming and their IPs. You know what I mean? Like they rush out things like Battlefield Infinite or whatever. They rush out things like the next Call of Duty or whatever and all that, and people just go like, yeah. I'm dying to play the next Call of Duty. I don't care how bad it is. You fix it over time. You won't lose a base. Because I mean, no matter how bad a Call of Duty game might get, it's still going to be better than any other first person shooter you can play on controller. Like the fan base is so diehard that they're not going to leave that franchise.
Yeah, but
yeah,
that's also when you treat your and who is guilty of this? EA, right? When you
Yeah,
treat your base, especially people can see like I mean, again, some people will argue like for instance like football, how much does football change, right? So every year, name title year just goes on and on and on. And even EAFC now, it's like can we say it's revolutionary in any way?
no,
Not really, right? So it's in a way we can't blame them, but again, it's them having their intended fixed base and what they can do with it. So if certain years they screw up, never mind, they make it up the next year. So, but there's always that bottom line base of fans who you know that will not leave because yeah, you provide the satisfactory amount of quality of the
yeah.
expect. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let me try to circle back to the video game topic, right? So I went to a talk Level Up KL. I can't remember who it was. This person was sharing the data of like during the pandemic and all that, how there was he calls it stupid money. There were
Really?
a lot of stupid money during the pandemic because like everyone like has to stay at home,
yeah,
Mm,
lockdown and stuff like that. So there were a lot of investment going into video games.
mm,
So there were a lot of stupid money apparently that time, to the point that the quality dropped because they have so much money. They don't have to like really focus much on
mm,
like putting a lot of heart and soul that they used to, right? So they just probably like just keep making like dumb games because they have a lot of money. They can simply hire people. They don't have to like do their usual quality check and stuff like that. As long as you churn out games during the pandemic, you get sales,
mm.
and then the money just apparently according to the data just suddenly just started
yeah.
like
Yeah,
decline,
after the pandemic.
and they decline because not just because the pandemic is over, but also because the quality of the games is
Mm,
getting worse and worse,
mm,
and therefore now you have like indie games also start to like come up because of that, and there's more opportunity for indie studios now, and and then of course there are other external factors, the woke agenda, street baby, etc.,
I want to
etc.
come back to
And
that
then
in a minute.
yeah,
Yeah,
and then you have Ubisoft issues. I think it's all this like snowball effect
mm.
from
yeah.
from the stupid money to the woke agenda and to what's going on today, and then you have all this like early access Kickstarter stuff that doesn't
Yeah.
work out.
When we talked about diversity, equity, and inclusivity, right? The idea that some companies are paying some consultants out there several $1 million to figure
Mm.
out whether or not their game is diverse, inclusive, or uh, gives enough equity to all parties is hilarious when they don't spend a single dollar on quality assurance. They're willing to spend money and give money to consultants to figure out if there are enough transgender people in your game, if there are enough black people in your game, if there are enough Chinese people in your game or Oriental descent, there are enough African, you know, North Africans or Muslim people in your game. It's like, wait a freaking second, man. Like, you mean to say that because the consultancy doesn't really affect things, right? What do? I just change the voice talent, I change the color of the skin, and I make the person's features a bit different. That's not
Mm.
like changing my whole game. If I had to change my whole game, okay, not gonna. That one is like, no, the storyline, narrative, and all that, it's bad, but it's good enough. But we'll let it run. It's like it's insane to think that that is where we're at right now, though. You know what I mean? Like, we're willing to accept this kind of shit shoveling over what should be, like, let's put the money and use the money in a better way that suits the storyline, that suits the narrative, that suits the gameplay, for
Experience.
example. Yeah, the experience, right? Like, why we never will see Titanfall 3 is because money. Why we will never see Half-Life 3 is for a totally different reason. It's because Valve just don't think they can do it.
Mm.
They've had a working narrative for Half-Life 3. They came out with that 2 hour long documentary, I think a month ago, about Half-Life and the journey it took to get there and what they were trying to do. And it's like Half-Life 3 is just sitting on a shelf somewhere. 15% done. The other 85% done is like, we don't think we can get there. We don't think we can invent something new. You know what I mean? Because every time Half-Life came out, it was a showcase of like, what can we do now, right? But sadly, it's like no other company is taking that to heart, right? They're not. Valve isn't trying to screw people over by releasing a bad product, although they have on many occasions, like what they did for the international, and they basically pocketed a whole bunch of cash, and they don't really share the prize money that much, and you can donate direct to the winnings and all that, like for nothing. It's these are all just don't make sense kind of tactics, lah, right? For
Mm.
the accountants, for the bean counters, and all that kind of stuff. But coming back to early access, right? And the problem I find is that politicians aren't young enough to understand how these things can be abused. Because it only takes one or two regulatory bodies in the world for it to become a global standard, right? Australia came up with the loot box thing, and so did
Mm.
I think parts of Europe. And then
Belgium.
suddenly, yeah, Belgium, right? And then suddenly it's like, oh, now everyone's got to look at the loot box. You know what I mean? Do you guys think that it's a big enough problem to solve if we're always going to have a willing buyer, but less than upfront and seller, so to speak?
I think Concord is a good example, right? People,
Mm.
just because you made a very high budget game, you spend money on marketing, the studio is a big shot,
Yeah.
and yet it failed miserably,
But that was a
right? And
complete
that's a
game, right?
lesson. That was a complete,
Yeah,
yeah,
complete game,
yeah,
and it
yeah.
just sort of
Even
fell apart.
even then,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's no guarantee you win, right? Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Because I just feel like it's kind of shit that like you always get things like that Diablo mobile game launch when they
Mm.
talked about it at E3, and then instead of like when people were not happy about it, the immediate Blizzard Activision response is, "What, you all don't have phones?" Like, just because we have a device doesn't mean we want to play everything or like a Diablo on every single device, on my smartwatch, on my phone, on whatever. That's just not how that works. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
they want quality with
Yeah,
it too, right?
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, what a downer. It's like there's nobody's gonna take up the fight. You know what I mean? Like, they're just gonna let it rock.
Yeah, but on the bright side, there are no more stupid money, and people are getting not a bright side for that. And people getting laid off because that stupid money has like gone away, and
Mm.
they thought that this stupid money will just keep on coming forever. But well, they're wrong, obviously.
Okay,
And
I had a
yeah,
like going back to stupid money. Do you not think that Microsoft is the stupid money right now? So this Phil Spencer guy is going out there and trying to buy everything with two legs and an arm. He's going there. He's pitching everything. He's going to Nintendo. He's going everywhere. He's going. What's your number? What's your number? What's your number? Give me your number. We'll buy you. And like he doesn't care. Like the stupid money now is like you put out a halfway decent game that's like a AAA game, and it's like a rated favorable 7.5 out of like 10 on like IGN or whatever. You could have Phil Spencer knocking on your door tomorrow and going, "Hey, how does 25 million sound?" 10 million share exchange. Do you not think that that's the stupid money too right now? Like,
I mean, that's a
Yeah,
mentality that's been
yeah,
running for a long time, right? Like
yeah,
whoever can buy
exactly.
tries to buy, right? So it's acquisition where they can to eat out your
yeah,
either to get a base through IP, get customers. So it's the inorganic way, but I mean, we can't sugarcoat it, right? It works, right? But it's what you do after that. Yeah,
yeah,
that
the
matters.
doing part.
Yeah.
It's a scary time for them, for especially for AAA studios because they have so much competition now. So even like back to that guy that was sharing data, I was sharing data of like how much time people spend on average, gamers spend on average on video games, and they're like, oh, during pandemic it's very high for obvious reasons, and then now it's going back down, and then because of that, now you have to calculate like the share of each gamer's time, right?
Yeah,
And
Mm.
then like how much share of time will your game get? And especially if you're coming up with like free to play games, that matters even more.
Mhm.
And now the biggest, like probably the most profitable games in not in a one-off manner, but like like free to play games like Genshin Impact, for example, or now you have like Love and Deep Space, that's for like the female audience, and then you have Nikkei and games like that. And if you look at the amount of money they're making per month is crazy, you know. And we're talking about like, oh, this early access of this AAA game, or this indie still, this one-off game that you might get like 500,000 to 1 million plus, whereas this free-to-play games are
yeah,
getting
they're
millions
getting
every
whales, right?
month.
Mm.
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that's a really interesting point that you brought up. That I didn't even think of that. Like the mobile games that have no story or not going anywhere very fast, they're killing the game right now. They're killing it. Like,
I would say some of them actually have better story than
well,
AAA
I mean,
games.
Genshin, I guess, is one example of a decent mobile game that has actual story. Like, but like generally, like the people who are spending money on Clash of Clans and Clash Royale and all that, there's
Oh,
no
no, no,
story there.
no,
Like,
no.
you know what I
Those,
mean? Like,
yes, yes, yes. Those are more casual.
yeah,
Mm.
Whereas like all these Chinese and Korean made mobile games, they are very like RPG kind of like storytelling kind of style, right? They actually do put a lot of effort in it, and you can really tell the quality, and they're very smart in it. They okay, for example, like Nikkei, they use sex appeal,
Mm.
right? But then actually the story, the writing, everything is actually very, very well done. It just appears like a cheap game because it is so sexualized. But that is their selling point at first, just to get male gamers into
Mm.
the door. But players actually stay because the story is actually engaging, it's very well written, and then the business model is fair. They don't the players don't feel ripped off because they have a gacha system, of course, just like
yeah.
Genshin and
Yeah.
all this. But their gacha system is, according to critics and whatnot, they say that it's the most fair because the percentages of you getting good characters are higher than most other games. So you have all
Mm.
these like factors that are like getting the bigger pie in today's era of video games, right? And then now all these, like let's say Microsoft, that they can buy everything they want, they can buy everything, but can they buy all these like Chinese studios, which is probably like they're so well off that they probably like, I think most of them probably like under 10 cent anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
Most
can
of
you
them are.
actually
Yeah.
buy them? Yeah. and
that's
and and
crazy.
need Yeah, and Shift Up was the studio that did DK, and they became so successful that they came out with Stellar Blade.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's crazy. Actually, now that you mention it, right? Like now, it actually makes a lot of sense that maybe a lot of these people are selling early access titles just because they can't see they'll probably never see the recurring business returns that a successful mobile game will have. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, fine.
yeah.
You're spending 30, 50 US dollars for the game, then maybe a few DLC down the line. But meanwhile, this one mobile game like Genshin is just going every day, every week, every month, 24/7. I'm making money Who the fuck cares about you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Triple A title maker.
So like, I mean, on that, right? And they have to know in terms of. I mean, that's a good example, right? Where it's, we look at, some of us look at mobile gamers as like, oh, they're just filthy casuals and so on. But that's a good example where it's like, hey, it's not just about filling up time. Where if it's really engrossing in terms of the narrative, the gameplay, and so on, a platform is a platform, right?
Yeah.
So we can choose to play it. I mean, as long as you understand what you're trying to deliver and you respect in terms of how you want to deliver it and you're fair, quote unquote fair, right? Then you get goodwill for the game. So, like for instance, like when you say that a lot of companies are owned by Tencent now, it's true, right? So you have studios like Timi, for example, where they're really good with, and some companies have figured this out, like I think Capcom and also Pokemon, right? The Pokemon company where they figured out, hey, actually we're really not good at making mobile games, right? So Timmy, can you help us develop with our franchise a game made for mobile? And it's worked, So it's like they're pretty successful because they know how the mobile scene works. They take the franchise and they respect what the franchise is about, but
Oh,
Oh,
it makes sense, right?
oh, Josh,
So I
you
think
froze
that
for a while.
you fell out for about 2 seconds.
really.
Yeah, just before what you said just before you said makes sense. Makes sense for him.
At least then we have no issue then.
Yeah, I yeah, I mean shit, Tony, you blew my mind because when you said mobile games, I was like, oh shit, I didn't even think of that as like. You don't only think of that as a competition reason, right? It's a lateral thinking kind of problem. It's not a
It
lateral thinking
is.
solution.
It's a multiple dimension problem now, actually,
Correct. Yeah.
Mm.
for studios.
Yeah. So like someone like me who's still unemployed, just in case anyone's wondering, like I don't play games on this thing hardly ever. I might play Dota 2 Underlords on here when I'm watching TV or whatever. But I have a Steam Deck. So the Steam Deck I play my Steam game library or my Nintendo Switch, which is my Nintendo Switch library. I at one point in my life wanted to make this the only device that I use for everything because I thought, hey, you know what? You could do emulation style gaming, and I was expecting that mobile games were gonna start to rise up in quality. But when I thought that, it was like the Samsung Galaxy S was the first like proper flagship Android phone, and it took forever for games to catch up on Android as a platform or even iOS as a platform, right? Like to the point where we can't ignore Genshin Impact anymore. Best, probably biggest MMORPG
Mm.
on a
Yeah,
small
yeah,
device,
it
right?
probably is.
Yeah,
And
and the
and
graphics are
I'm not sure if
great.
you can call like Genshin. Maybe it was made for mobile, but you can play it on PlayStation. You can
Yeah, yeah,
play
you
on
can now.
PC as
Cross
well.
platform.
Yeah, yeah. Nikkei as well. You can play on PC, although it's still gonna be like in a vertical mobile view. Um, yeah. So they it's become to this is maybe this is the factor as well why some studios think that maybe we should do a early access first and see how it goes and get funding or gain traction, just like, oh, we can just put in all the cool stuff um, in this early access part, this portion of this game, the starting part of this game, just to gain traction, and maybe it's a free marketing, and maybe that's why we have games where like the first like 1 hour or 2 hours is like fantastic, and then the later part of the game
Yeah.
is like shit,
Mm.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? That probably. I don't think anybody's looking at those kind of market factors to determine a review. Do you know what I mean? Like a review site like IGN or GamePro or fucking Screw Attack or I don't know what. I don't think they're looking at market factors and going like people complain generally online about early access and beta testing a game for other people, and then like now Steam has come out and said like, look, if your DLC is not fucking complete, it's not a DLC. We're gonna pull your shit off the shelves and refund your
Mm.
money.
Mhm.
and you'd be liable to pay for it. And it's like they're finally sort of taking the stand and going, "Hey, look, enough of this shit. What you put out there has got to be a complete thing, whether it's a game or a DLC or whatever. It's got to be complete, right?
Yeah.
It's got to meet a certain standard of requirements and all that kind of stuff, the minimum requirements. So, but that being said, like, do you think other platforms will start taking it up, like Xbox and PlayStation Store and all that kind of stuff? Like the studios they own, do you think they will start being like, okay, you know what, guys, no more of this bullshit. Now you're carrying the Sony brand name, you're carrying the Microsoft brand name. When you release something, you better do a good job, or or heads are gonna roll.
I wish that were true, but I don't think so.
Damn it!
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, unfortunately, uh, numbers still talk, right? And I mean, like, don't get this wrong. I mean, I know none of us are, we don't live in the sky, and some things are really, numbers are important, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think ultimately, it's I think all I ask for, even like the example you came up with, right, in terms of like IGN and all this other Game Insider and so on, even then, even if they take, if we were asked the question like, are they holistically reviewing it? Right now, we are even questioning that, right?
Yeah, because you
Because
can buy
some games,
reviews now, right?
it's so obvious that they have been bought when the ultimate product that comes out is just shit, right? So even then, we question like, yeah, maybe they are opening themselves to market factors in terms of the money lah, by XYZ studio or publisher who gives them, hey, don't review bomb our game. It's incomplete. We know this, but talk about the positive assets. Here's some money. But as consumers, we and it's a small. I would assume it's a small outlay by the
Yeah.
studio or the developer, just to get just to ensure that it doesn't affect the overall numbers during launch or the first phase of the game.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is sad. Yeah,
Immensely sad.
yeah, it is immensely sad. And sometimes, the scary part is, right. I'm not gonna name names in terms of the game, right? But some of
Alright, just
them
name it, lah, bro.
knowingly, I think, was it? Oh, it was Dragon's Dogma 2,
Okay.
where they released a review copy that didn't have the uh, uh, online payment transaction module in it. So they hid it from reviewers.
And then
Yeah,
launched it with this nonsense pay to win mechanics, lah.
yeah.
Fuck.
Which, I mean, they rectified, but it's still,
No, it's
I
just
mean, word just gets
shitty.
out, right? So people are like, hey, why did you slip this in? You already knowingly knew that you wanted to slip this in during launch, but for a review copy, which should be the completed version, this wasn't in. So I think that's where people start to question, like, hey, what are you trying to achieve here with what you're doing?
I would like to believe maybe in an ideal world I think like big like portals like IGN, right? You can't really pay them to do you know all
I'm
these
sure
like fake
people do,
reviews, but
right? Like, you don't pay them technically, right? What they do is they buy ad space on your website.
Yeah, I mean, if politicians can
possible.
buy it on Fox, why not, right?
Yeah, because I've seen
That's
some
possible.
really questionable reviews on IGN that
Yeah,
like get
Yeah.
even the reviewer is saying this is not a great game, but it's not bad either. I'm like, what? And then they still give it an 8? How do you do that? How do you conscionably do that?
exactly. It's so questionable. It's like, what, are you sure we're playing the same game?
My goodness.
But sometimes it's because they don't like say that this review comes from IGN itself, right? It's like one of our critics or one of our reviewers kind of
So it's
thing.
never their fault.
So so it's like, or it depends on who's reviewing it kind of thing, right? So you can't, like, to be fair, we can't really say that, oh, it's IGN, like, just like we can't say it's Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's like one of their reviewers, one of their critics kind of thing. And then yeah, I think let's try to find the positives of having early access and beta. I think back to like I can't think of any other titles at the moment, but hey, the way that Hades does it was really really good, right? Really like early access for 2 years. The community was very very supportive. They really give feedback. They really listen to feedback, and that's why when they released the game was a huge thing,
Mm.
right? It won Game of the Year,
Mm.
and that is how early access should be done.
Mm.
Okay. I mean, I think there are a lot of positives for having early access. I mean, for sure. I just can't stand being taken for a ride. You know what I mean? Like being taken for a ride and led by the news and all that kind of stuff, and they going, no, 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 it's gonna be a great game, and then you download it and play. You're like, what is this?
Mm.
Why is it so broken?
But
Sad state
I
of
guess
affairs.
yeah, what Tony's right now. Let's look at there are
Positives are
some
good, yeah.
studios out there doing good things,
Well,
continue
yeah,
Yeah,
to
yeah,
do
yeah,
so.
yeah. I think in to a certain extent, the game being broken is probably can it should probably be expected because the game is not complete, and there's a reason why it's early access also.
hmm,
And for you to give feedback, right? And it's like you can go to the reviews and say, oh, I mean, they will put there like on Steam, it's like early access,
yeah,
how many hours you played and stuff like that. It's like, oh, the game sucked because of this, and then the developers, the studio can like, oh, okay, we have to fix this, we have to fix that, and therefore, like even like Hades early access wasn't perfect. There were a lot of problems as
yeah,
well. Even Hades 2,
Mm.
they had this limited early access or demo that you can actually apply for. I
Mm.
tried applying, but I was too late by then. It's like within like 6 hours, there were like 40,000 people applying
oh,
for it,
mad,
and
Amazing.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and there were a lot of people like streaming in and like giving feedback, like okay, there's this bug and all that. Even Hades 2 wasn't perfect when they had that. So, but that's why they call it a technical demo test or something like that. And immediately within 1 month they fixed that, and then they like released it.
I want to
So yeah.
ask, do you think it's because they're trying to save costs on testers, on game testers?
Oh, for indie studios for sure.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can't hire people to play test for you all the time if you're working on a strapped budget, right? You'd rather spend the remaining money you have if you got it from Kickstarter or your VC fund, I don't know, whatever or whoever. You probably want to spend that money on trying to fix what you can
Yeah.
Mm.
rather than paying playtesters to figure that shit out for you and like help you
Yeah, it's,
solve
it's
that,
it's
right?
it's difficult. It's difficult for indie studios. Budget is one thing. Even if you want to try to do it yourself, it's hard because you have to have so many different type of specs of PC,
Mm.
versions of Windows, Mac
Mm,
even maybe.
mm.
uh, yeah, like I think what's the studio name? Big Giants, something like Super Giant Games. The studio of Hades. I think they probably have like less than 30 people in their team. So that's
Mm.
relatively a small team for a game that's as good as Hades.
Hmm.
And I don't think there is possible for them to like do every single possible test
Yeah,
internally.
yeah, you're right.
Mm.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense. Yeah.
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 Well, any closing thoughts other than looking at it on the positive side of things?
I
I think,
think.
but
Sorry,
yeah,
Tony, go
sorry,
ahead.
there you go. Oh
No,
yeah,
no, go ahead.
I think that not I am in the game industry, but as a gamer, as a consumer, I think that um, early access is fine, beta is fine, as long as because we already pay when you have an early access, you own early access means that you already paid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to you expect the studio to
Yeah.
Mm.
finish the game, listen to feedback, and if that is done, I think, and of course, don't take too long.
Yeah.
Maybe give a deadline. when you are selling that early access at least. And I think that would be fair.
Yeah.
I think that would be fair. And I hope all these like studios that just come up with early access or Kickstarter and then just take all the money and then they just go on hiatus indefinitely. I hope that would probably stop lah.
Or Kickstarter needs to start being more careful in who they let, or some sort of like mechanics to return your money or whatever, like, you know.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, that's tough.
Yeah. Josh?
And I totally agree, right? So it's early access, and if it's with good intention, because I mean, I guess we can't blame developers sometimes because, again, a tester. I mean, it's the whole thing, right? When it comes down to if you've seen the product and the service day in, day out, there are some things where even a tester can't see, but your consumer who is invested in the game to a certain extent, either through paid or not paid, or even just a demo, or even just a beta phase, right? There are some things where your player base will be able to spot or even abuse that you might not even know. So because video games are so experiential, right? Where it is participative and it counts so much in terms of how we as gamers ultimately what we feel, what we experience, right? So I mean there are benefits to it, but I think I definitely agree with what Tony says. It's we who buy into early access need to see that at least the outcome or the issues are being addressed when it's being released. So
Yeah.
when it's not being addressed, then that's where we start to question, hey, I gave you this amount for your game even before launch, and now I'm paying in full, and why is this not fixed or addressed? I think that's where you start to lose your base.
I agree. I think
Mm.
that, yeah, I think that early access is not a bad thing. I mean, we brought it up today as a topic because there are some abuses of it and all that. And some people, you know, whether rightly or wrongly, use it as a springboard for like, hey, no, you know, like to beta test and all that kind of stuff. But I think in some cases it should be acceptable. I think that big companies that have AAA kind of money and are producing games that are huge, maybe not like a CD Project Red. I mean, obviously they're not, they weren't super well known and all that, or the people who did No Man's Sky. I mean, that's just a few dudes who didn't quite know exactly what they were getting to, trying to build something as big as that. You know what I mean? When their lead developer was a mobile developer before.
Mm.
So I think a lot of people can give a lot other people a really long leash, but I think it's the onus is on these big companies, you know, the EAs, the Ubisofts, the Bandai Namcos of the world, the Capcoms of this world, to say like, hey, come on, guys, you set the standard, make the game good before it's
Mm.
released. You know, don't give me this early access bullshit, but it's crap. You know what I mean? And then don't go and try and PR shift shovel all the way down the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah,
Quite a downer.
yeah, it
This
is a
this episode.
Stay tuned for next week when we. Cool. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
All
We're out.
right.
Thanks, guys. That was awesome.
All right.